You never know. You never know. Usually we don't know the person sitting next to us in these kind of things. So hopefully you know somebody. All right, so you're going to have to share with me, and can I take the mic out too? Is that okay? I know we have our online participants with us as well, and they're chatting on their own. It's not technology spread. All right, so share with me anything outside of these frequently asked questions that you want to share, or just endorse the question. Say, yep, we keep getting this. Yes, sir. Stand up so they can. Larry Thomas.
Well, when Knowledge Man first kicked off in the Army, I was part of the team that helped push it out. One of the biggest challenges I had was not, one, Knowledge Man is not about the technology. Okay? It's not about the technology. And oftentimes you put that on the CIO as that's your mission as an IT guy. It's not about that part at all. That's just the enabler. The other part I had a problem was when I went to visit our team in Korea, and I've never gotten this step probably 10 years ago, is that the guy said, why should I share my juice with you? Because knowledge is somewhat power. Power is job security. So it's to reach out and help somebody. The knowledge sharing is about someone that needs to know, but someone who knows, connecting those two dots and create new knowledge. And that's what you have to kind of convince them on, because they don't see that. All they see is knowledge is power. I tell you that, you take my job away.
Do you see the knowledge is power as being a cultural issue across? So do some of you not deal with that, or is that pretty standard across this organization? Knowledge is power. Thank you. Who else? That steps in. I'm going to talk about this under change management. Who else? Anybody else have a comment or two? Anybody? Come on. I can wait you out. Okay, wait. Yes, sir. Come on. You like that? Yes, ma'am. Your name?
Rose Harmon, Army Medical Department. I think that for the most part, people do see that knowledge is power, but I think our mission in knowledge management is to help people understand that sharing knowledge is power. And so we have a difficult mission, but we have to educate the workforce.
Someone about 3 weeks ago wrote in an email to me and said, knowledge sharing is power. And I said, oh, was that you who wrote me? It could have been. I love that. Knowledge sharing is power. Your people open up when you hear that. They let the window seal up. It's a crack. Anybody got one more from this back audience back here? I pick on back row people. Anybody? No one? One more? One more. That's all we need. Anything? Look at this. She didn't stand. I'm looking at it.
Hi, Sherry Myers from USARC. Some of the discussion we had is that this isn't a new issue, sort of like the gentleman said at the front. It's not about technology. There's always been an ability to want to share, and it is not a side project or a side kick. It's simply a way of getting our visions and our missions taken care of for whatever organization we are a part of and support.
You know, it's crazy, guys. These frequently asked questions, and we think we've answered them, they never go away. And the answer changes some over time. It's changed over the 15 years because what we knew 15 years ago, when it was just an immature discipline, we know so much more now because we've seen it work and we've seen it not work in organizations. So you've got to keep these in mind, though, because these are all things, as a knowledge manager, as a leader in this field, that you have to address and be able to think. So those are some of the things I want to talk about, and we're going to encapsulate a lot of these frequently asked questions into saying, okay, well, Cindy, what do you do to make it really matter? So I want you to look at this picture, peaceful. I want you to imagine this being your job. That's your job. Isn't that nice? Oh, yeah, I know. It's peaceful, nice. And if you look at the river, that's the flow. That's your workflow. You're in that river and you're just floating down. Every once in a while you get a few rapids. It's dry. In Texas, it's very dry right now. We don't have any flow at all. It just kind of sits there. But it's a nice flow. That's your flow. Now, up above is all this infrastructure that supports your work. So when somebody says, oh, we have a cool new tool, you can get on and collaborate. You can collaborate and talk to people, share what you know. And you look at it and you go, oh, I got to climb up out of this river and climb that mountain so I can share what I know. Right? So here's Carla's and my big idea that we kind of fell upon, and we can't claim it, but we found the concept because the gentleman was talking about wikis and how you use wikis. And he used the phrase, in the flow and above the flow. And man, we latched onto that and said, think about knowledge management and think about it above the flow and in the flow. And there's not a choice of how you put your knowledge management program in place. Because think about it, the enduring issues that we deal with, two of them, is how do you get senior leaders to endorse and give funding for it? How do you get them to do it? And the second one is how do I get people to participate and engage them in some of the things we're doing so they can share their knowledge because it's powerful. Those are two things that we have to think about all the time. And this big idea helps you start breaking down because think about it, you don't want to climb up. So when you build, as a knowledge management leader, when you build an infrastructure that makes it hard for people to participate and share what they know, that they have to get out of their flow of their daily jobs to go do knowledge management, man, it looks resource intense, it looks hard, and it's a struggle. So the notion is that you want to embed knowledge management in the flow of people's work. Now, it all cannot be embedded, but you want to be able to embed so that people can, when they have a best practice and they've learned something out in the field, how do we quickly get it to where it needs to do? And the technology today, I tell you what, if this whole Web 2.0 social media had not been created for KM, we'd have to create it. Because it has put knowledge management and knowledge sharing back on the map to say, here's the great things that these tools can do. But they have to be built into the flow of what people are doing. And you have to focus on what's important. So again, think about, and I'll give you a couple of examples of this. MITRE has everybody has to complete a timesheet at MITRE. They put the timesheet on the knowledge management portal. People have to go there, it's in their flow. So they're going to see things that MITRE wants them to see. It's not the importance of the timesheet, it's that it's a daily activity. When you look at ConocoPhillips and Fluor, if you want to get best practices from experts, you have to join their communities of practice and their networks. If you want to get best practices and improve your skills and knowledge base in a certain discipline. It's baked into how they think about knowledge. So it's part of people's daily workflow. So the question becomes then, how do you know how to start and begin your program? So this is, to switch gears, I'm going to finally get to the three things I want to tell you guys about. When you start thinking about, there we go. When you start thinking about the discipline of knowledge management, people get really confused. Carla and I realized about 4 years ago, and when we started writing about it, we really realized that the people are confusing the terms knowledge and knowledge management. So knowledge management, get really clear. It is a discipline, it is a program, and we put a hard line in the sand on that one that says you're going to have a group of people responsible for the processes, the technologies, the approaches on how people's knowledge can flow in an organization. Because face it, if it gets stuck in a database, it isn't doing you any good. It would surprise me if U.S. Army RDEC said, we're having issues, our customer out in the field is having an issue with some ammunition or some weapon, and I doubt that they would send an Excel spreadsheet of data for them to look at and figure it out. They're going to send their best person there to solve a problem. So the solution, the knowledge is typically in the solution, and the tacit knowledge is what helps create the solution. So, going back to this maturity model, APQC has a maturity model. It seems like we're overrun with maturity models. But what it helps us do is it helps us think through the levels of capabilities and skills that you need to be thinking about for your knowledge management program to help you advance and make your knowledge flow more sophisticated. Move it from localized to a more standard flow to where then you can be innovative and you can actually optimize and leverage it for the organization. So it becomes at level 4 and 5 a very proactive strategy opposed to just getting your entire community sharing best practices and sharing lessons learned. So there's levels and capabilities. Now behind all of this, we've identified 12 different capabilities that help your knowledge flow. And if you look at let me make just one sidebar comment on this. What we've done over the last 5 years with this maturity model. And we created it with a group of advanced practitioners that looked a long time and did a lot of testing of knowledge management approaches in their organization. What we're finding based on the data sets that we're getting, because you can benchmark and take a capability assessment, when we look at the data, what we see is, in comparing it to external financial data, we've only done this with industry, we have not tapped over into the government or the public sector yet, but we are actually seeing 2 times better financial performance for people with higher knowledge management maturity. So there's seeds of this stuff is really working, and we need to pay attention to it, because as we get more mature, this is what's happening. Now, the 12 capabilities, let me show you on the next page. And there's a lot of it. I'm going to make a few comments about these. Tammy, I'll let you switch the slide. What we've been able to see over the past 3 years, because of the data that's coming in from the capability assessment, is that there are actually some drivers. So you can see this is broken down. There's really 4 main categories, which are classic for any knowledge management, any kind of improvement discipline like this. There's strategy, people, process, and information technology, content management. So when you break it down, the 12 go like this, and they break down into things like the business case, objectives, governance structures, resources, approaches that help knowledge flow, the actual knowledge flow process itself, measurement, and then of course the information technology and content management. Very detailed questions, very focused on behavioral, much like the Malcolm Baldrige. We patterned it after that and also looked at SEI, the capability maturity model. So those were the 2 things that we looked at as benchmarks to say, here's how we want this to work. And it is proving itself out because it gives people a roadmap. It lets people see a vision of where they can be as level 5. Because senior leaders, there's never, when you're trying to get them to engage in this, they're never going to tell you knowledge flow is a bad thing, right? They love knowledge flow. What they rebel at is saying, oh, this is a big investment, no one has time for this, we do this in a natural way. So we thought early on that the strategy, the governance where decisions get made about this, and a budget would really be big drivers for this. The data's not proving this to be such. So what I'd like to talk to you about today, on slide 7, for those of you counting, are really the 3 things that we see as driving knowledge management programs. I'm going to give you some examples about that with those, so you can look at and think about those for your own organization and where you are. So the first one is the actual business case. Now, business case may not translate for you guys, but it's the case for action. It's to say, what is the value proposition for our knowledge flow? And it looks different for every organization. I'll describe some of them. The second one is actually measurement. And you all knew that I was an old accountant. You know that I was going to be talking about measurement. But it is about measurement. We've been looking at it from day one. And it's showing the unintended benefit that we're getting from the work that we're seeing in measurement, the research we're doing, is that measurement is becoming one of the most effective tools for managing the change of your culture. So that was number 2. Number 3, not surprisingly, is your issues around your culture. And Bob Buckman at Buckman Laboratories, a special chemical thing, said 15 years ago, culture, 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 it's 90% culture. And I have to call him sometimes and say, you were right, but you can't do these things without all of the other capabilities. So you want things working on full cylinder. 12 cylinders, and they all go to full throttle. But these are the 3 things that I want to share with you that you need to be focused on. So let's move to number 1, talk about what we mean with the business case. We've said for years to get senior leaders' interest and their attention that you've got to have a business case. This is for anything, right? You've got to show some value for it. And I think in our early days of knowledge management, just the notion of knowledge, of it being knowledge, and it moving to people who need it at their teachable moment, we thought that was going to be enough. It's not. When we talk about a business case and a case for action, we're talking about you needing to make it tangible for these people. For your leaders who need to pay attention, it's got to be tangible. And there's all kind of ways